Hello, everyone. Looks like we have quite a few people joining us this morning. Thank you all. We are so glad to have you with us. We will get started in just a few minutes here. We'll let a couple other people join in so no one misses out on all the fun. Hello, Cassandra. Looks like we have someone who has found our chat function. So wonderful to have you online with us this morning. And just a great way while we're all still logging in, I'm always interested to hear where people are coming from. Looks like Joan from Chicago. So go ahead and in the chat function, type where you're calling in from. It'd be neat to see where everyone is this morning. Awesome. Looks like we've got quite the spread.
All over the country, it looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ben Cornett. I'm your host for today's webinar. We're going to get started here in just a couple more minutes. Got people even from Canada and California, Chris, your neck of the woods, Washington, Colorado, Ohio, all over the country. So we are expecting a full house today. We have about 673 people that have registered for our webinar. We expect to see about 300 to 350 people join. So we're going to give it just a minute or two and go ahead and get my screen set up here and we'll start sharing. We know the chat function works, so that's good. If you're just joining us, tell us where you're from. Lots of California. Chris, I think we're going to talk to Chris in just a bit. Said it's a little bit cold in his neck of the woods of California. So we'll see. It's that time of year it gets cold once in a while, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's about 54 degrees this morning.
It's outside of the LA area, I think. So you guys can all see my screen, I think. Jessica, you see my screen okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, well, without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead and get started again. Thank you, everyone, for joining our webinar this morning. My name is Ben Cornett, and I'm your host today. Just a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, we're really happy to partner with Volgistics in pulling together this case study review of how a nonprofit achieved efficiency with the volunteer management solution with Volgistics. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. I hope that's kind of what you guys are expecting and what you're here for. Also, this webinar is being recorded. We'll provide a copy to those that weren't able to make the webinar. Again, we did have a full house register for the webinar. We will address questions at the end of today's webinar. So the chat feature is open. As many of you already found out, you can certainly chat your questions to us throughout the webinar. And of course, there's a Q&A session, so you can actually ask questions throughout the webinar as well. And what I'd like to do before we get going too fast and furious is just a quick sound check. And we can use the chat. If you can hear me okay, I am on my phone, so it shouldn't be breaking up because of bandwidth, but just type 1 in the chat if you can hear us all okay. Jump in the chat there and just say 111 if you can hear, and that'll help us understand how everything is working. So we should see some ones there. There we go. For the most part, it looks like we're okay. So let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. I don't want to delay things. I'm really happy to be partnered here with some of the best people in the nonprofit business. But first, I want to welcome Chris Jackson. Chris Jackson is our partner relations manager here with Verified First, and he works closely with Tim at Volgistics in managing that relationship. Chris, out of the LA area where it's 50-some degrees, good morning.
Hey, Ben, good morning and welcome everyone. I'm excited about the details we're covering in today's webinar.
Yeah, really excited for today's webinar. And, Chris has been with Verified First for, I don't know, has it been almost 2 years? It's coming up there.
Yeah, close to 2 years.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Today we also have Tim Long. Tim's with us out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I think, what was the weather in Grand Rapids? Kind of super rare, like 80 degrees or something.
Yeah, we have a high of 78 today,
Wow.
which is really unusual for November. It's a rare case where I got to put up my Christmas lights while wearing a t-shirt. So,
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Well, we're excited for Christmas season, that's for sure. And, having Christmas right upon us, that makes it so, we're all thinking about doing a lot of good in today's world, more than normal probably. So, Tim, we're happy to have you with us.
yeah, I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. And of course, Tim is one of the client services managers, directors there at Volgistics. Really quick, Tim, you want to tell everyone about your role with Volgistics?
Sure. So the main focus of my role is customer support. So anybody who asks a question, I'm one of the people that will help answer those. I also do a lot of demonstrations for new customers and free training sessions and paid training sessions and those kind of things. So my goal is to help people to learn how to use Volgistics to its fullest.
Awesome. And hopefully we get a kind of a short sneak peek or glimpse of some of those trainings today in today's webinar. So
yeah,
we're really happy to have you, Tim. And again, thanks for co-hosting this with us. Last and the star of the show today, of course, is Kristen Kraklow. And Kristen, I hope I didn't butcher your name. I think I got it right. Kristen, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. And yes, you got it right. Thank you.
Oh, that's twice now. Kristen, I know that we're going to talk a little bit about your role there with the Volunteer Engagement Experience Manager with the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, or what we're going to call OMSI, I think, from here on out. But maybe just really quick, tell us a bit about yourself. I think you're out in the Portland area, and maybe what you like the most about your role at OMSI.
Yeah, so I am in the Portland area, and for temperature-wise, we're a little below 50. They're predicting snow in the mountains, but that's not where I live, so that's okay. And I've been with OMSI, or the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, for about 4 years now, and I manage the Volunteer Engagement Department, which gives me the opportunity to create pathways for individuals to support our mission who either have a passion for science or who have some experience or who want to gain some experience. And I just love creating those opportunities for people to learn and for people to create connections throughout their community.
Yeah, and I know we've spoken previously, Kristen, so thank you for joining. I know learning is really close to your heart. So, as a father, I appreciate people that care about learning, maybe a little bit more than I do. I need to improve in that area. So thank you for what you guys all do. And thanks for joining our webinar.
Glad to be here.
Well, awesome. So really quick, before we dive in, we want to talk a little bit about the partnership between Volgistics and Verified First. And really, this slide is really meant to highlight the commitment that we've come together with Volgistics to really drive technology that provides you the easiest, fastest way to manage your volunteers and, of course, screen volunteers. Verified First is a background screening company, and we integrate directly with a Volgistics solution. We're going to talk mostly about Volgistics today, but again, the commitment is mutual, that we're committed to make it the easiest, fastest way we can screen together. And Chris, maybe before we turn the time over to Tim and Kristen to share the results of a case study we performed, maybe take a moment and frame today's conversations a little bit.
Yeah, sure, Ben. So a couple months ago, we reached out to a number of joint customers, and we wanted to find a mutual client that could share openly about how they got value out of the Volgistics platform. And we chose OMSI for a couple of reasons. First, Kristen cares about the volunteer experience and engagement. I'm confident that will show and come out in today's webinar if it hasn't already. Second, I felt the challenges that OMSI were facing are common challenges to many nonprofits, especially during this time. And we wanted to drive some value to our audience in a way they could essentially relate to.
Yeah. And I think, we're going to really hopefully pull that into the conversation today, Chris. So thanks for framing that. And Kristen, like I said, we really appreciate the opportunity. Take a few moments, Kristen, if you don't mind. We're going to put you on the spot a lot today, but tell us a little bit about the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, OMSI, and the mission that you guys all have.
Of course. OMSI's mission is to inspire curiosity through engaging science learning experiences. And after 75 years of serving the Oregon community, OMSI established itself as a leader in the science museum industry. And we're especially known for our own, making our own exhibits and hosting our own events. During a typical year, we generally schedule about 1,000 volunteers regularly to support our educational programs, and a little over 500 volunteers to support our one-time events. In 2020, our solid volunteer base has inspired me with their commitment to our mission. But we have had to make some changes to both our processes and procedures during this time.
Yeah, definitely not easy times, right, Kristen? I mean, as you go through, you think about, you mentioned during a typical year, you know, you see about those 1,500 volunteers. 2020, I think we all can agree, is much more than a typical year. What does that look like that year? Are you finding that you have a lot less volunteers, or what does that look like a little bit?
So for 2020, at the beginning, we definitely still had a fair amount of volunteers. But at the moment, we have significantly less, mostly because we can't have as many people on site. And so we've limited our capacity to that space. But we are increasing more volunteer opportunities that can be done remotely. So I would say at the moment, we still have about 300 to 400 volunteers who want to continue hearing from us, but we only can allow about 100 volunteers to regularly be scheduled. So it's sort of a little bit of a balancing act right now.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of listeners in today's webinar that have similar challenges, and I know that you guys have had to kind of reinvent yourself. Before we kind of go into some of the challenges you normally face, maybe give us a couple examples in a museum environment. How do you reinvent yourself where you have normally probably thousands of people coming through every month, and now it's probably shrunk down to limited subsets? What did you guys do to reinvent yourself a little bit?
One of the major things that we changed in our museum is we limited the capacity to our exhibits and instead changed a lot of the spaces into classroom spaces for a variety of students or adults who are looking for places to put their kids so that they have some distance learning support. So we have a variety of different spots throughout the museum that used to be public areas and now have turned into classroom spaces for 10 or under number of kids. And not only do they still attend school virtually, but they also have an educator on site from our staff to help them through a little bit more of their homework, so to speak. So that's definitely been a unique thing that we wouldn't have done generally every year, but has been really valuable to our community. And then another thing that we've changed is our events. As I mentioned before, we generally had one-time events with about 500 volunteers helping with that. Now we have virtual events. So we create packages for people to pick up ahead of time, and then they participate in a virtual experience at a timed experience on a Zoom call. And then they can go from there to experience it.
Yeah, it's definitely different times, and I'm glad that you were able to adapt and overcome. That's what I think we do good as Americans, is we adapt and overcome the challenges that are faced before us. So thank you for what you guys do. Now, we talked in our case study, I know that you shared some information, which we'll provide a copy of the slides and everything, about some of the challenges. I think a lot of people have similar challenges. Just really quick, maybe take us through some of the challenges when before the Volgistics Verified First story came together. Talk us through some of the challenges you all had.
Sure. So prior to working with Volgistics and Verified First, tracking applications, openings, trainings, hours, et cetera, it was challenging. One of the examples briefly I could share would be when we had to bring on a variety of people to help out with our do-it-yourself or maker fair, and needed t-shirt sizes and things like that. And using spreadsheets was just not very useful for that. But specifically with OMSI, we also have a variety of partnerships, both externally and internally. So we were trying to create a way to improve communications. And I'll give you an example of something that went successfully this year, thanks to our coordination with Volgistics and Verified First. We had partnered with 2 universities to connect with their anatomy students and create volunteer opportunities for them within our featured exhibit, which was Body Worlds. It was a great opportunity to give the students practice talking about high-level concepts about the human body and also giving guests the opportunity to talk to an expert. However, this meant that my team had to onboard about 100 students in less than 2 weeks. And we knew we needed us to streamline our operations in order to set them up for success. But we also needed to communicate effectively with our internal museum staff who were going to be supporting the students, as well as our external partners in order to keep them up to date. And this opportunity was unique. We had never done this before. So we needed a tailored experience for these students. And that's why I appreciated the combination of Volgistics and Verified First, because I was able to carry out all of these actions that I used to do on spreadsheets in one online site.
Yeah, definitely challenges, and overcoming those is, I think there's a lot of firsts that we've never done a lot of things for a lot of people right now. It's like, we've never done that before, and here we are doing it. So good job. Tim, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Volgistics platform a little bit later today. And, you know, Chris, I know these are challenges that a lot of people might have overcome. Tim, maybe before we go too far, are there other challenges, or do you think these challenges represent a majority of Volgistics customers, some things they're facing?
Yeah, I think these challenges are common to volunteer organizations probably around the world. Everybody wants things to run a little bit more smoothly. And like you said, Kristen, doing this stuff through Excel is a nightmare. So, you know, getting that information into a system, whether it's Volgistics or even a different volunteer software, but it is just a huge step forward. And but I think obviously the integration with Verified First makes it a little bit easier to again continue to streamline it, make it easier. Yeah,
awesome, Tim. Well, let's take a quick audience poll here. I may go ahead and launch the poll. It should pop up in your screen. Take a moment here and let us know what your top challenge is as a nonprofit today. We'll leave this open for a few seconds. And I know, Tim, when we talk a little bit about this question, right off the bat, because you're in this space, Volgistics, you're like, oh, it's volunteer recruitment. It's always the problem. And it's going to be interesting to see what our audience says today, see how accurate we were. And then you start thinking about things a little bit and kind of change your response. But give it just a couple more seconds. About half of you have voted already. Take a quick second. What's your top challenge? And think about it today. You know, I don't think we can think of world of normal pre-COVID anymore. We have to think about what's my challenge today. So we'll see what this does. Most everyone's voted. I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll and share the results. And you guys should see that on your screen, I think, Tim.
Yeah.
I think. Any surprise? It's kind of across the board.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems pretty even split. With volunteer engagement, they're taking a little bit of a lead. But yeah, I know in the past, recruitment has always been one of the very top concerns for any volunteer organization. But, you know, this year, everybody's got their volunteers already and just completely reduced how much they can do. So keeping those volunteers engaged, even if they can't, you know, come to your facility and serve, it makes sense that would be a more of a challenge this year than other times. Yeah,
for sure. And I think a lot of people say, well, all of those are my challenges, but the reality is we're trying to get an idea and engage. And, you know, it is split across the board. I thought that was really interesting. Any thoughts, Chris or Kristen?
No, you know, I'm actually surprised. You know, I heard a lot like in 2019 that volunteer recruitment was a huge challenge that a lot of nonprofits had to overcome. But now obviously we're in 2020 and it's like no other year we've had. So no, I'm really shocked and, you know, kind of crazy to see that.
Yeah. I think, Kristen, you'll talk a little bit about, you know, the Volgistics solutions and, you know, how it kind of, kind of streamlined all those different areas. So we're going to chat about that in just a couple minutes. But, you know, Chris, maybe take a moment and give me a little break here. Let's talk a little bit about streamlining operations and how Volgistics and Verified First were able to help Kristen do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Enjoy your break. Kristen, so we know that streamlining operations was one of the outcomes from leveraging Volgistics. Would you mind just talking us through that?
Sure. So going back to the anatomy students for an example, I was able to review their application, order their background check, and invite them to self-schedule themselves for an orientation all through Volgistics, which made it a simple 3-step process. It shortened our turnaround time and made scheduling much easier.
Cool. And I'm sure that was also just a good experience, overall experience for the volunteer as well.
Correct. And it actually set us up for success right now because we are doing the same steps because people can access them online. And so we're having more online orientations, which we hadn't had before, but it's still the same step process.
Awesome. Tim, if we can, let's make a note here. So in a few minutes, as we show the Volgistics solution, we highlight how users can shorten their process time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, Tim. Kristen, does anything else come to mind before we move on to the next slide?
Not at the moment. No, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I know we've got some questions here just really quick. We'll answer most of the questions at the end, but please feel free to chat your questions or put them in the Q&A, and we'll try to get those. I do some questions specifically for Kristen, so we'll get you ready for those. But anyway, just a reminder there for everyone. Sorry,
Thanks,
Chris.
No, thank you. And, improved communication. So we've heard from different nonprofits in our virtual coffee hours we hosted earlier this year that volunteer communication has been mission critical during the times we face with COVID-19. And I'm curious, Kristen, can you share how OMSI has dealt with communication? I know Tim is going to share more about VicNet and VicTouch, but maybe you can just explain at a high level what these tools enabled you to do.
So VicTouch and VicNet have been essential during this time, especially as procedures and practices seem to change weekly. VicNet allows us as well as volunteers to see not only their scheduled shifts, but also where we could use some extra help. I have one volunteer who used to always ask me which day was our greatest need, and it would always change. So now he can see it, sign himself up for it, without waiting for me to respond. And VicTouch right now gives us the ability to know who's on site at present, which is important from a safety perspective. And we just recently started using the timesheet option, allowing volunteers to log their hours remotely, whether they're off site or they're forgot to log their hours when they were on site.
Okay, and I'm sure as with most communication platforms, reporting comes into play, right, Kristen?
It does.
And while we're on that topic, I guess, maybe you can share an example or of how you use reporting to improve volunteer experience.
Well, there's multiple reports that can be used to improve the volunteer experience. Reports can target recruitment effort, giving volunteers the opportunities which fits their interests. An example which comes to mind is our middle school program needed mentors who had engineering experience. And by sorting through Volgistics, I was able to generate a short list of individuals with a background in engineering and, more importantly, a background with middle school classrooms. Reports can also generate volunteer engagement through tracking volunteer hours and anniversaries. And I just wanted to do a little plug in that in April of 2020, we recognized 4 volunteers for 20 years of volunteer service with OMSI. This type of report speaks well of our program, but it highlights the value of volunteers to me, both their contributions and their dedication.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think, it's super cool. I think, Kristen, and as I think about being able to use the reporting to say, hey, here's 4 volunteers been with us for 20 years, it's probably something you can use in your messaging in your recruitment process is like, we're here to stay. We've been around for a long time and people love us. And here are some examples of what that looks like. That's super, super awesome. So maybe a quick another poll. Let's see what our audience thinks here one more time. Chris, you want to frame this up as I go ahead and get the poll question pop up on the screen?
Sure. What is the top reason why people volunteer? A, it fits their moral principles. B, an opportunity to make a difference. C, they want to help people. Or D, they want to improve their resume. Or E, they want to occupy their free time.
I think these are pretty common questions, Tim, that you see in a lot of volunteer surveys is why do you volunteer? What do you think is going to take the win today?
I think this year more than most, it's going to be about occupying free time.
It doesn't mean for our listeners, go change your answer.
Yeah.
Just keep voting the way you're voting. I know y'all like Tim, but come on.
We have to
Yeah.
agree with them at this point.
Yeah. What do you think, Kristen? What's going to take the win?
I would have to agree with occupy free time at this time, because that's one of the major reasons I get from volunteers when they call me, of saying, I have to do something. It's going to help my mental health. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about volunteering, is that I can create opportunities for people to learn, and also opportunities for people to do something meaningful with their time. So it kind of fits in with helping people and making a difference. So I'll be interested to see what everyone else says.
Well, here we go. So everyone's got their vote in. There's a clear leader this time. And, you know, I kind of tend to agree with, I think there are people that, at least in my town here, I'm in Idaho, Boise, Idaho, corporate headquarters of Verified First. And in our town, you know, there are a lot of people that have been furloughed, or they have nothing to do for a period of time because of COVID. And, you know, there's a lot of hospitals that use a lot of volunteers, and they can't volunteer like they used to. And people are kind of, you know, we live in a town where there's a lot of retired folks, and they're looking for places to occupy their time. So I probably would have voted for that if I were in my city, but making a difference, I'm glad to see that a lot of us still want to make a difference. I think that's critically important.
It's not, this is one of those things where I'm glad I'm wrong. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really, you know, I really like the idea of tracking this. You know, I think that's really why you guys have the causes you have as our audience, and do the things you do, is you're really trying to make an impact, positive impact in our world. And, you know, I don't know how to thank everyone for the services you provide to our communities, but they've impacted my family's life. And, you know, you guys are doing a lot of good. I really get excited when I get engaged with volunteers. So let's transition just a little bit here, Tim, and kind of put you on the spot for a little bit. You know, we're going to walk the audience through some of the highlights that Kristen talked about, maybe look at VicNet, VicTouch, look at how we streamline the process. So I'm going to just pause my screen share and let you take over for a couple minutes here. Let me go ahead and do that. And then it should allow you to share your screen there, Tim.
All right. Let's see if I can figure out where this is. Oh, probably this big thing that says share screen here. Here we go.
A little bit different. I know we kind of did our practice webinar in a different solution, so it's okay.
Yeah,
we're people. We're human.
Yeah, it's not letting me share yet, Chris.
Okay.
Or Ben. Sorry.
Here, I stop my share. It should give you the ability to do that now. Try again.
No, it's still not letting me share it.
2 seconds, Tim. There you are. I'm going to promote you to a host. Sorry, that's my bad.
Here we go.
You should be good now. Sorry, everyone. This is my fault. Technical difficulties. They're inevitable in a live webinar with 313 of us listening right now. Did that work, Tim?
Yes. And here,
okay.
Should see my screen now.
Awesome. Just really quick before we go on and kind of how you're going to walk us through this, Tim.
Yeah.
For those listening, go to the chat really quick. Just type 1 if you can see Tim's screen. That way we can make sure everything is working on our end as we expect. Thank you. We're good. Go ahead,
Great.
Tim.
Okay. So basically what I want to do is just kind of walk through what it looks like for a customer to get, a volunteer to get started with Volgistics, and how they're going to interact with the system. So typically a new volunteer is going to come in through an application form. So I want to bring up one of our forms here to show you what this looks like. Typically with these forms, you'd have it somewhere on your website so your potential volunteers could find it. And the form is pretty customizable here. So, you're creating your own section headings, you're choosing which fields you want in each section. So you can have as much or as little information as you want here, just depending on your needs. A couple things I want to point out as far as time saving and making this process more efficient is down here near the bottom, we have some schedule fields. So this allows new applicants to schedule in the sample account, we've got it in orientation, but you could have actual working shifts too if you wanted to do that. You can also have a volunteer agreement here on the page that they'll have to actually check the box to indicate they agree before they can submit the form. So it's a good way to get a little bit of that out of the way right here in one step. Then when the form is submitted, initially they'll show up here in your mailbox under application. So this gives us a little basic information about the applicant. To see a full profile though, I need to check their name here and click receive, and that's when it'll become an actual volunteer record. You can have it skip the step if you want to save a little bit of time, but this is just the default workflow. But I want to look at specifically Vanessa's record here. So this, now we can see everything else that was included on the form. And again, I'm just going to hit the highlights as we're going through. One of the things that for some reason is not coming up, but did come up earlier for me was if you do have the Verified First integration turned on, you'll see a big button here to start the screening process with Verified First. So again, you can order the background check and actually see the results right in Volgistics without having to go through a separate portal. So it makes this a whole lot easier. I'm not sure why it doesn't show up here, but it usually would.
Just curious, Tim, are you by chance in Chrome or Firefox? I
am in Firefox, but I'm in private browsing mode, so I think it just turned off that extension for some reason.
Yeah.
But
so Chris, maybe if you don't mind, Chris, at the end, let's just show that extension if you can get that queued up on your screen, Chris. So when you're done, Tim, we'll just show the button.
Oh yeah, great idea. And then I want to jump over to the history tab. And here what you'll see is a list of your volunteer requirements. So anything they need to do to become or remain active is listed out here. And these are all custom items for each account. But when these are completed, I can just check it here. So now, it's checked. I know it's been completed. If it is something that will need to be renewed, we'll also see an expiration date. That way I know when it's coming due again. And the system can also send out an automatic reminder to Vanessa as that expiration date approaches. So she'll know what the next step is to getting it renewed. See, and then below that, we'll have a detailed date history. So this keeps track of any status changes, checklist items, awards. You'll see date entries for each of those. That way you can look right here to see Vanessa's complete history anytime in the future. Over on the Docs tab, we'll see a PDF copy of her application form. So this way I can always see it as it appeared when it was submitted. And this will include that agreement text, so you can always see exactly what it was the volunteer actually agreed to. Now next, I want to take a look at what it looks like from the volunteer perspective. So we'll start by looking through VicNet. And VicNet is an online portal. This preview function allows me to just log in as Vanessa so I can see exactly what she would see when she accesses the system. This home tab gives me a place to post news and information for Vanessa so that she can get a quick update on current happenings with the organization, procedure changes, those kind of things can all be posted here. You can post links to other resources on the web. So we've got training videos just as examples. If you want to post your own training videos or other resources that you think are important for volunteers to have, you can always put them here instead. We also have some blank forms over here. So this is a good way to share those. They can print it, sign it, and get it back to me. Or I can share things like volunteer handbooks or newsletters. Again, that way they can always come here to get it rather than me trying to distribute those to volunteers on my own. Over on the My Profile tab, volunteers like Vanessa can come here to manage their profile. So I can view and update any information here. And again, this way she can do it herself and she doesn't have to email me or call me when she needs to update something here as she moves, gets a new phone number, whatever. On the My Schedule tab, I think this is one of the biggest time savers in VicNet. This allows volunteers to view and manage their own schedule. So right now, Vanessa doesn't have anything scheduled because she's an applicant. But if we go into one of these days here with that Help Wanted icon, we can see those additional shifts that she's actually eligible to sign up for. So right now, there's this orientation session. I can go ahead and schedule here to put Vanessa on the schedule for that day. So again, this way she's doing it herself and I don't have to do it. It also helps me manage how many people are going to show up. But this will put that on the schedule in Volgistics so I can see it as well. And then when she does become an active volunteer, we'll have more opportunities there. Right now, we only have the orientation because she's still an applicant.
Right. So really quick, if you don't mind, I think Kristen, you know, this is probably one of the features where you guys have a lot of different things going on. As a volunteer, it really makes it super simple compared to how did you guys do this before Volgistics? I'm just curious.
As far as scheduling goes and
Yeah.
everything in VicNet, most of it was email. So for our events specifically, we had a spreadsheet that we shared amongst the various organizers who needed access. And people would email us to say, yes, I can help out on this shift and this date. And as many people on the call can probably relate to, someone would say, oh, I can do this one time. And someone else already had that time. So then you have to email that person back and say, sorry, that time was taken. Can you do this time instead? So it definitely shortened our emails back and forth.
Yeah, and your role where your main role is volunteer engagement and experience. You know, I would imagine as a user, you know, as someone volunteering, this is a much better experience probably.
Correct. Yeah, I would definitely say the experience improved, especially for volunteers who are trying to see if the spot's still available or not, or can they fill it? What's the greatest need? This really helps them have that transparency.
Yeah. Sorry, Tim, I know I might have thrown you off track a little bit, but you know, Chris probably uses this every day and she probably has a calendar full of stuff. So
yeah, no, that's great. And I really appreciate you pointing that out. Yeah, the trying to schedule all that stuff manually through email and Excel spreadsheets is it's a big headache, especially when you've got a sizable volunteer program like what Kristen's running. So yeah, I can't imagine trying to do all that without you know, a portal like this where, you know, they can go and manage the schedule on their own.
Yeah, so maybe Tim, if you take us, and I know there's a lot more to this, but maybe let's shift gears a little bit and let's look at the I think it's Vic Touch that's kind of on the internal side of the coin. Let's talk about like Kristen's role and what that might look like now.
So yeah, we can take a look at Vic Touch here.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, well, I don't know if I said it earlier, but Vic Touch is basically a volunteer time clock. So typically this is running somewhere on site where volunteers would have access to it. They would log in here with their PIN. I'm just going to pick one from the side here. But then I can sign in and choose the assignment I'm there to serve in, and then I can go about with my shift. We do have these greeting cards that can show up based on holidays that you define, and that's a great way to just interact with the volunteers on those special days, whatever you want to observe there. But then when I'm done for the day, I can return here, enter my PIN again, and then sign out. And the system will take those in and out times to create a service entry. So this means that, you know, as the system operator or the volunteer manager, I don't need to process timesheets manually. I don't have to worry about, you know, making mistakes when I'm transcribing stuff, and they don't have to email me those. It's just automatically in the system because they've signed in and out. And the other thing that goes along with this, and Kristen mentioned it briefly, is the Who's Here page. And this gives you a list of the volunteers who are currently signed in along with their assignment times. So I see who's on site and what they're doing.
Yeah, certainly a huge help. Imagine if you're managing people on site, and even in the event, hypothetically, in the event of some kind of fire or something that were to happen, it's nice to have is everyone accounted for kind of place. I'm guessing that's what this can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Anything else, Tim, that you think our audience would want to see? I know we've got a lot of questions coming in, so I want to save some time for you.
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to show real quick is the reporting. So there are a number of report formats in Volgistics, and you have both stock reports with the orange icons here and custom reports with the white icons that are created for this account. So you can obviously print off any of these stock reports. You can create custom reports to meet your needs. And just to give a really brief example, I want to bring up this stock report that I've already got printed here. But you see, this is a pretty generic service report with volunteer names, the dates, the assignment, the hours. But you can customize these. So for example, if you don't want these volunteers to know hours, or you really only want one date column, you can change that to meet your needs to make sure you're getting the information that you actually want. You can also choose to organize it by things like volunteer or by assignment or by volunteer type so that you're getting the right subtotals for the things you actually want to track.
Pretty slick. Kristen, anything that you think Tim should highlight that he didn't? I mean, you use it every day.
I think you covered it all. I don't know if this is something to go into now, but the coordinators area has been also helpful for me. And just briefly, so folks know what that is, that gives other staff members a little bit of access to Volgistics without having to take over the whole thing. So it's been really useful for individuals like the events team or some of the education team, where they can just look for their particular assignment and be able to manage the schedule that way.
Yeah, that's great. And these will log in through VicNet like the volunteers do, but they see the schedules for all of their assignments together, and they can add and remove volunteers there. So that's, like you said, a great way to get a few staff members a little bit of access.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Tim, appreciate it. Hopefully, as questions roll in, we may come back to your screen, so keep them up there.
Okay.
And so that incognito, really quick, Chris, let's pull up, if you're willing to share, Chris. We have a sandbox of Volgistics here. Maybe just a little really quick in a non-incognito. Let's show them what the button would look like and how that would streamline the process when you need to request something like a background check, just real quick.
Sure, Ben, if you want to make me the host, I can go ahead and share my screen.
Oh. Yeah, I can do that, I think. Chris. Oh. Maybe I can't do that, Chris. That's weird. I don't know, Tim, maybe do you have another like non-incognito that we could just show that real quick? Because I can't make Chris a host for some reason.
Yeah, let me give that a try here.
Okay, I know I'm putting you on the spot, and our goal is not to share any confidential information, obviously, in the webinar, so that's why we're cautious. I appreciate everyone's patience here, and then we're going to jump into some Q&A.
Okay, this should work.
It's technology, so you never know, right?
Right. All right, yeah, so there's the big Verified First button right there. I am not logged into Verified First, so I can't get any farther than that. But at least you can see where that button is, which you can use to start that background check process. So again, it's right inside Volgistics, so you don't have to go log in somewhere else to do that.
Yeah, appreciate that, Tim. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and pull my screen back up, Chris. And You know, we haven't talked much about Verified First, but I do want to give you just a few seconds maybe to highlight some of the results that came as a result of the case study. It looks like I've been deactivated as host myself, so I don't know how I did that. Jess, are you there?
Now the host, does Tim have to make you the host again now?
I might. Let's see what I can do.
If so, make Verified First the host. There we go. Let me try it again. Sorry, guys. That's not happened before in our software here. You should see my screen again.
Yes.
Yeah, that's coming through.
Anyway, Chris, really quick, you know, you've been really close to the case study with Kristen, probably much closer than I have. And just maybe quickly highlight, you know, we don't want this to become a salesy. We want this to become, hey, this is useful for me. And there's definitely some results that I think we should highlight as a result of streamlining the process, improving communication that we mentioned.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that, Ben. And I'm curious to know a little bit more from Kristen. But so everyone can read the slide. However, I do want to call out that OMSI was able to complete around 300 background checks within the first 6 months without ever leaving Volgistics. This helped reduce the processing time of screens by, I believe, half, and OMSI onboarded new volunteers in 25% less time. So Kristen, if you don't mind, you know, sharing a little bit about how the integration with Verified First has worked for you and your team, that'd be great.
Well, it definitely saved us time, and it was very easy to integrate into our process. I will say that the staff at Verified First provided excellent training on how to use the software and have been very quick to respond to any questions. That's also true of the Volgistics team, as the video tutorials have come in handy when I can't figure out how to change a certain setting, and the response time has also been very prompt.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Kristen. And I'm actually glad to hear that you were pleased with our level of support. Verified First really believes in going above and beyond for clients, so I'm glad that showed here, and that's really nice to hear. So thank you. Ben, do you have anything else to add? Anything I missed?
You know, not really. And I think we can get the most addition from all the questions that we got. And guys, there's a lot of questions. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's just start at the top of the list here. And we may not get to them all, but we will answer you all. For Sherry, question came in kind of early in the webinar, and it was a question about motor vehicle background check, Chris. So I think this is one probably related to you. And the question is, do you offer motor vehicle or MVR background checks? And then, of course, pricing always comes up, which we'll address in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, great question. We do offer MVR searches, and we pull those records right from the DMV. So yes, we do offer MVR.
And so, Sherry, we'll get back to pricing in just a couple more questions. I know you had another follow-up question, and this is probably more targeted for you, Tim. It's Volgistics. Can we personalize some of the information that we use for the core profile?
Yeah. So, you know, looking at the field names, those are all customizable. And then a lot of them, the formatting is also customizable. So yeah, you can really track whatever details are going to be relevant for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing I really like about Volgistics, you know, personally, is the ability, the flexibility, the ability to customize it to your own use case, because everyone has different uses. You know, you could put a t-shirt size if you're giving everyone a shirt or something as such in their application form. So super slick.
Absolutely.
So Sherry, hopefully those takes a couple of initial questions. This one came from Melanie. Melanie, thanks for your question. And Kristen, this might be more for you. What are some of the roles you've given to volunteers to work remotely? Some examples of what that remote work might look like.
Remote work has definitely been a bit of a creative endeavor for us. But some of the ones that have been working well for us so far have been with our online classes. So we have volunteers who are actually handling the technology remotely for us so that they're monitoring the chat feature while the educator can focus a little bit more on the class. So that's been a unique tool. We've also had a variety of volunteers support some of our research efforts, as well as some of our proofreading and document production For example, I produce the volunteer newsletter monthly, and I actually have a volunteer help me proof that and format. So it's been a learning experience for them because they're trying to gain some skills and experience with marketing. And it's been a great work for me because I have someone else to support the work.
Yeah. Thanks. I think those are some good examples, hopefully, to help you out there, Melanie. This question from Janice, and this is a question a lot of people might think. It's, what exactly is verified first? I don't even know what that term means. So, Tim, I know you built the integration there at Volgistics. Maybe we'll let you take a cut at that because we know what we are, but maybe you can put it in terms that everyone else might understand better.
Yeah, well, I guess Verified First is obviously a background screening company. So they are the ones that handle that whole part of the process. So basically, you know, as far as the integration, you order the background check through Volgistics, and that their system will actually contact the volunteer to get any missing data, as far as like name, address, phone numbers, social security number, those kind of things. And then they'll use that to run the check. And then results are also available through the integration as well.
Yeah. The cool thing, I think, hopefully to help you answer that, is that you never leave the Volgistics system. That's really what we wanted to build, is that you never leave your platform there at Volgistics all in one. So, Chris, you know, this question comes up all the time. We've done a lot of webinars together, my friend, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 now. Pricing is always a question, and the answer is it always depends. I know that's what you're going to say, but maybe elaborate on that a little bit and why it's so varied on specifically the background screen portion of what the service offers.
Sure, absolutely. And before I do that, I saw a question pop up. We do offer background checks. We support Canada. So pricing, yeah, it's very challenging in our industry, right? When we think about background checks, there's around over 160 individual services or so. And those services vary, right? Depending on jurisdiction, depending on if they're bundled within a package. So it's really hard to give you specific pricing. But I will say that the integration that we offer with Volgistics is free. So the integration, you don't have to do anything but download an extension and it pops up in your page there. We're also transactional based, so you're not locked into any sort of contract. If you're bringing on 10 volunteers a year, you pay for only those 10 background checks. If you bring on 1,000, then you pay for the 1,000 background checks. But what I would encourage you to do is just reach out, and we're happy to assist with pricing and customize that based off of your nonprofit organization.
Yeah, awesome. Happy to do that. So another question. This is from Sherry, and this could be very relevant. And maybe Kristen, you can help with this. You know, what do you guys run across? I guess it's maybe two questions. Do you run across volunteers that aren't tech savvy? And if you do, how do you help them through the process?
I will say that, yes, I definitely run across volunteers who are not tech savvy. I myself am not very tech savvy, so this has been a learning experience for me. Generally, I will, with the situation it is, I usually have them on the phone and walk through the process with them. For example, I just did that yesterday, where I set up a time to call a volunteer, and we actually talked through the steps on the screen together so that they understood how to use a VicNet. That way it was someone who could see what they were working on, because as Tim showed us, we can access the screen as a volunteer would see it. So that really helped me to be able to teach them how to use it, because I could see exactly what they were doing, even though we were not in the same room together. So that's generally how I handle it, is a phone call, and then using screens from there.
Yeah, awesome.
Well,
hopefully that helped with the question there. Sorry, Tim, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have some training videos that are geared toward volunteers as well. So if you want links to those, I can provide them, but that is, you know, really geared toward the volunteer perspectives to walk them through what they'll see when they log into the portal.
Yeah. So another question, and this is maybe a bit more COVID related, is from Rosemary. Rosemary, thanks for your question. I don't know that we're going to get into all our questions by the end of our hour, but what device do you use for VicTouch, iPad or computer? And, you know, they took it down because of the idea of having to keep it clean and people coming through. So any recommendations there?
Yeah, as far as the device, VicTouch was designed with a touchscreen computer in mind, so a desktop PC with a touchscreen. But it works well on mobile devices. It even works with a regular monitor and a mouse. So you can really use it on any device that's got a modern web browser. It doesn't look as good in very small screens like a smartphone, but tablets is just fine. And, you know, as far as like, you obviously have the sanitation concerns, especially now. Unfortunately, there's not a way around it right now. We've had some just keep a thing of wipes next to it so that, you know, they can use it and then wipe it down.
Awesome. And I think it looked like my screen lost connection here, everyone. So I know we're at the end of our time. Nonetheless, there are other questions that have come in. So we'll make sure those questions are answered the best we possibly can as a follow-up. Any last remarks, maybe Kristen, before we move on from today's webinar, and any last call-outs that we need to identify?
Was that for me or Chris? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Kristen, any last remarks? And then we'll go to Chris.
I definitely have found Volgistics to be, I'll be honest, was a little challenging when I first started because of all of the options. So I really appreciated Tim's team of creating tutorials and being able to learn a little bit more about how I can tailor it to the volunteers' experience. And I will also say that Verified First definitely made impact on how to incorporate that into our regular process, because background checks are very important to us, especially given the demographic that we work with. So I really appreciate the integration and also the support of humans. I know Tim and Chris now fairly well, so it's not just working with a computer screen.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that, Kristen. We appreciate you coming on the webinar. We appreciate that what you do, you know, background check is important. I had an example about a year ago before COVID. I was at a conference with Salesforce in their nonprofit lodge. And as we're talking to people about background screening, we found that, you know, it was upwards of 60% of organizations said they don't screen volunteers. And, you know, Chris, I know we've talked about that in the for-profit world. That number is about 30, 35, 38%. But why, maybe as you wrap up, Chris, your remarks, you know, it's important to screen people. Maybe just highlight real quick any thoughts around that as we wrap up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and of course, even if you're bringing on a volunteer for a sensitive duty, you may want to screen, right? And that duty may be specific to a certain search that you run on that volunteer. But, you know, as guidelines continue to evolve, you know, and they shift, you know, running a background and conducting a background check is becoming required. A lot of people are talking with their legal team and compliance team on different searches that they should be running on these volunteers. So, you know, I can't stress it enough. I encourage you to reach out if you do have any questions. I know we didn't get to all the background check questions. I saw a few come in, but I'd be happy to chat with you and, you know, give you some answers.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Tim, again, thanks for helping with the webinar. Any last comments? And maybe we'll wrap up with some contact info that should be up on the screen there here shortly.
Yeah, the contact info is up. So that's great. If anybody has any questions, just feel free to reach out either to me directly, or you can get to the general support team and get an answer. They're a little bit quicker than me, but we'll get answers to you either way. But yeah, really, I'm really glad that we could do this webinar, and thank you, Kristen, for doing the case study and sharing this information with it. It's been, I think, really helpful. Yeah.
And that's our goal, everyone, is really to make sure this is helpful. Again, we did record the webinar. I saw a few people had to leave early, so we'll get that out. We'll also send a copy of the case study out to everyone that attended here shortly. There is a survey at the very end. I think Jess might drop it in the chat here while we're talking, but take a moment and take the survey. We want to provide you content that's relevant and valuable, and your time in taking the survey will help us. Also, just a quick mention, we are planning coming up before Christmas, 16th of November, another coffee hour, which is really an open forum conversation. What volunteer organization, nonprofit organization might look like in 2021. So that's Hot Cocoa with Santa, and we hope all you can join us. You'll see some information on that coming out relatively shortly. Tim, Chris, Kristen, thank you so much. And again, everyone, thanks for joining our webinar. I apologize for some of the technical glitches, and have a great rest of the day. And well, it's almost Thanksgiving, so happy early Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.